You ever open your phone just to check one thing, and suddenly you're staring at a little pop-up that says, "Start your free trial," and you pause, because you know exactly what that means. Not really free, not really optional, and definitely not going away. Maybe it was your music app, or your photo editor, or that productivity tool you downloaded during one of those late-night, "I'm gonna get my life together" moments. And now, everything wants $4.99 a month, or $9.99, or $19.99 if you want the real features. And at some point, you start wondering, when did literally every app decide we're all just renting software forever? My name's Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, business psychology, and the quiet little ways companies reshape our spending habits without us even noticing. And honestly, the shift to subscriptions is one of the most fascinating and slightly unsettling financial changes of the last decade. Because this didn't happen by accident, and once you see the pattern behind why every app switched to subscriptions, you kinda can't unsee it. So let's talk about what's really going on here, and more importantly, what it means for your wallet, your habits, and your future. First, let's rewind for a second, because believe it or not, this wasn't even that long ago when you bought software once. One payment, done. Finished. You owned it. You'd pay $2.99 for an app, download it, and that was the relationship. Clean, simple, transaction over. Companies got paid once, you got the product, everybody moved on. So why did that completely disappear? Well, because companies realized something uncomfortable about one-time purchases. They're unpredictable. Imagine you run an app company. Some months, sales spike, other months, crickets. Investors hate that. Planning around that is stressful. Hiring around that, even worse. Subscriptions, on the other hand, smooth, predictable, beautiful recurring revenue. It's like the difference between getting random tips versus a steady paycheck. And once companies tasted that stability, there was no going back. Why this matters to you is simple. The subscription model wasn't built for your convenience. It was built for business survival and growth. Now, that doesn't automatically make it evil, but it does mean your interests and the company's interests are not perfectly aligned anymore. And that tension, it shows up in ways most people don't notice. The second big shift, and honestly, this one is sneaky, is psychological. Subscriptions don't feel expensive. That's the trick. If an app charged you $120 upfront, you'd think very carefully. You'd hesitate. You'd compare options. You might even decide you don't need it. But $9.99 a month? Feels manageable. It slides under your mental radar. There's actually a weird moment that happens when you first see a subscription price. Your brain doesn't multiply it by 12. It doesn't project forward 3 years. It just goes, oh, $10, that's fine. And companies absolutely know this. I've done this myself, by the way. I once signed up for a note-taking app thinking it's only $5. Fast forward 2 years, and that $5 quietly turned into over $120 for something I barely used. That's the subscription creep. And why it matters is because small monthly decisions compound in ways that feel invisible, until suddenly they're not. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. Subscriptions didn't just change how companies charge, they changed how products are designed. When companies relied on one-time purchases, their incentive was simple: make the product really good up front so people would buy it. But with subscriptions, the goal subtly shifts. Now, companies are optimizing for retention. Not just will you buy this, but will you keep paying forever? And that changes everything. Features get released in smaller pieces, not necessarily because that's always best for users, but because steady updates remind you the service is alive. Free trials become frictionless to start and slightly annoying to cancel. Notifications gently nudge you back into the app just when your usage starts to drop. None of this is accidental. It's retention engineering. And look, to be fair, sometimes this model genuinely improves products. Continuous revenue can fund better updates, better support, and faster innovation. But sometimes it creates products that are less about solving your problem and more about staying in your monthly budget. And once you notice that difference, you start seeing it everywhere. Let's talk about the convenience trap, because this one hits close to home for a lot of people. Subscriptions feel effortless in the moment. One tap, Face ID, done. No friction. But here's the weird part. friction sometimes is what protects your money. Back in the day, buying software required a small moment of commitment. You had to decide, you had to think. There was a tiny pause between wanting something and paying for it. Subscriptions remove that pause. And when you remove enough tiny pauses from someone's financial life, spending starts to feel automatic. I remember talking to a friend who swore they were pretty careful with money. Then we actually listed their subscriptions: music, cloud storage, 2 streaming platforms, a meditation app they hadn't opened in 8 months. Total monthly damage? Way higher than they expected. And that's the quiet danger. Subscription costs hide in plain sight. Okay, quick reality check because I don't want to paint this as some cartoon villain story. Subscriptions aren't inherently bad. In fact, in some cases, they make perfect sense. Think about services that continuously deliver value: cloud storage, music streaming, online collaboration tools. These actually cost companies ongoing money to maintain. Servers aren't free, bandwidth isn't free, support teams definitely aren't free. In those cases, subscriptions can be fair. The problem starts when the model spreads to things that don't really need ongoing payments. Calculator apps, simple photo filters, basic utilities that used to be one-time purchases. That's when people start feeling, well, subscription fatigue. And honestly, that fatigue is real because your brain isn't just tracking dollars, it's tracking obligations. Every subscription is a tiny open loop in your financial life, and too many open loops create mental noise. So what should you actually do about all this? Because look, we're not going back to 2012. The subscription economy is here. It's baked into how modern software businesses work. But you do have more control than it feels like. The first thing, and this sounds almost too simple, is awareness. Once every couple of months, actually audit your subscriptions. Not quickly, not casually, really look. Ask yourself 3 brutally honest questions. Do I use this regularly? Would I notice if it disappeared tomorrow? And is there a cheaper or one-time alternative? You'd be surprised how often the answers make decisions obvious. Second, be intentional with free trials. Free trials are basically the gym memberships of the software world. The business model quietly assumes a percentage of people will forget. So if you start one, set a cancellation reminder immediately. Not later, not "I'll remember," right then. Future you will be grateful, trust me. And third, this is more philosophical. Start valuing ownership again where it makes sense. Not everything needs to be rented forever. Sometimes the boring one-time purchase is actually the smarter long-term move. If you zoom out, what's happening with subscriptions is really part of a bigger shift in the economy. Ownership is slowly being replaced by access. We stream instead of buy music. We subscribe instead of own software. We even rent features inside products we physically bought. And there's convenience in that, sure, but there's also a quiet trade-off happening, one small monthly charge at a time. The real skill going forward isn't avoiding subscriptions completely, it's learning which ones genuinely earn their place in your life, and which ones are just quietly lingering in the background, billing you while you sleep. Because companies are getting very, very good at making subscriptions feel normal, effortless, invisible. And honestly, that's exactly why paying attention now matters so much. Not in a paranoid way, not in a cancel everything and live off-grid way, just in a calm, clear-eyed, slightly more intentional way. Because once you start noticing where your money is actually flowing each month, you regain something most people slowly lose without realizing it: control. And in a world of one-click payments and silent renewals, that control is worth a lot more than it used to be. Thanks for watching our video. Like and subscribe our channel for more informative videos. Don't forget to press the bell icon for notification of new videos.